people need to understand and get off the fact at this point in time in this mission, if you will, of Ammon taking and occupying a refuge. Okay, he's there. We're over that. Let's move on. Let's start focusing on the issues. Okay, people, let's not focus on what he's done. He's there, and if it wasn't for what he did, in reality, we wouldn't be having this conversation. All the media wouldn't be here. All the spotlight wouldn't be here to bring the problem to the surface. We get that. How can you not support that? Any reasonable person can step back and say, you know what, this stuff is wrong. This stuff that's going on is wrong. And it's not just happening in Harney County. We have so many people that say, well, this is a Harney County issue. Get out of here. You're outsiders, or whatever the case is. Issues across the country, and I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't our last stop.
No.
We're not stopping.
No.
I just as much as Ammon Bundy has his resolve, I have my resolve for this Patriot movement, and I have my resolve to expose what the BLM, what this federal government's doing, and I'm not going to stop, and I'm not going to stop breathing.
I'm an embedded reporter with the 3%er, and I will give out my number. You want to know what's going on the ground. And I want to thank Pete Santilli, because if it wasn't for Pete Santilli, folks, I think that this would have went upside down, and I think that everybody should send him a big thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
You know, and listen, here's another thing I'd like to say, folks. Quit snipping and calling people feds and stuff like that. If you got a difference with somebody, put it to the side. I am so sick and tired of it. You know, really just sick. Why don't you put your differences aside? Let's get to the bottom of this, and later we'll settle whatever differences is. Because even if there's a Fed in there, and maybe he's our friend. I'm okay, and so.
Well, at this point in time, I would say, and I was having a conversation, not that I'm going to initiate it, but I would say that the corruption that exists in this county and the wrongdoing that's been done in this county.
Best in the nation coming here as constitutional authorities, and you're witnessing in Harney County the restoration of the United States and the Constitution, and this is going viral everywhere.
Yes, sir.
Don't listen to all this provocateur media out there. If you want to know the truth, you've got a channel. Hey, media, you want to know what's going on? You want to make your career? Get in touch with Pete Santilli.
There you
go. Get in touch with me. We'll tell you the straight gist.
Some ranchers in the area, we met with them last week. They were very concerned about what they were going to do when the snow melted, because the majority part of their range has been fenced off by the Fish and Wildlife Service.
The Puckett, this was where last year they used to run their cows, and with this BLM came in last year, fenced them off, and with this being fenced off, their ranch is much less viable. So we're opening it up, letting them go back on like they were.
God bless America.
So we came up here under the direction of the rancher, meaning where he would want to do it. We're standing on his private property here, and we opened up the fence so that the cattle can go back into the grazing land in which they purchased and have established a beneficial use.
This spring. Okay.
All right. For the Constitution.
There you go.
My dad always taught me to wrap it.
Absolutely.
Like this. Yeah, Harney County used to be the wealthiest county in the state, from diminished to the poorest, and it's because of fences like this.
Do you worry about legal action now, having done this?
Well, I think that if they want to put legal action against me, don't you think, after me being at that refuge there, having been the first one on there, they could already have as long as list as they want? So if I'm not worried then, why should I start worrying now? Okay. All right. Now, this big of an opening, I mean, you can get 1,000 head of cattle come through here, but his 600 head of cows can come out here and graze on this thing, and he'll not go under.
Come on, baby. There she comes. She's coming. Go.
We want to make sure the gate was big so everybody could see that the gate was big. They'll come back in, we'll put in posts and make it so that if he wants to make it so he can control different pastures, then we'll put in a bigger post and make gates.
Make a gate?
Yep.
It is beautiful land.
Why do we import a single beef? Why do we import a single thing of food when we're the greatest food producing country in the world? We should be exporting, bringing wealth into our country. It makes no sense. This is a good day.
It's the happy.
That's how deep it is with rat dirt. Piles. We've already swept up a bunch of them, but
That is disgusting, dude.
it's a giant pile of rat dirt.
That is disgusting. This is just absolutely disgusting. Where are all the rats right now?
They're running for cover. Come here, buddy.
Are they in there?
See that? You can see this is all.
It's an absolute infestation here.
There's a flying squirrel living here somewhere. I've seen him like 4 times. Yeah, just infested. Just nasty. Look at here. I mean, that's been there a long, long time. That's rat shit.
This is just absolute neglect and
dust.
abuse of government property.
Yeah.
Correct?
Oh, totally. Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, this did not happen over the summer,
So
okay?
this facility hasn't seen TLC like this in a decade or more. And so we're here. It feels good, Pete, I'm telling you, to come in and find it in this disarray, understanding that the government's inept in managing it.
My name is Chris Briles. I've lived here in Harney County since 1978. I joined the Burns Volunteer Fire Department in 1979. I took over as the fire chief and was over the ambulance for 24 years, well, until the ambulance moved to the hospital. I have been a servant of this community since the day I stepped on its soil. I want you to know that I haven't had a chance to prepare anything for you people. So there's nothing prepared here. It's coming from my heart. And my heart right now has been hurt. When Ammon had the meeting out at the fairgrounds, and a group of citizens from in this community said, maybe we need to have a committee of safety. Maybe we need to do some things that maybe can help with some of the problems that have been going on with the land grabbing and some of the things that are not constitutionally correct. They had a unanimous that they needed to form a committee of safety. Okay, they did that. I was the second person nominated to that position. And I thought, oh my God, what happened to me? I just showed up to find out what's going on in my backyard. That's the only thing I was wanting to do. Do I want to be involved in this? And I will tell you straight up, the major reason that I got on this committee to begin with was because it was said that if the committee of safety needed to, they could call in the militia. To me, at that point, it scared me. It's like, I don't want a bloodbath in my county, and if there's any committee that has the power to pull the trigger on something that causes a bloodbath, I'm going to be on that, because nobody's going to touch that trigger if I'm there. We don't need violence. We don't need bloodshed. We don't need anything other than to figure out, is there a problem? If there is a problem, what can we do to solve it? So I made that commitment. Since then, I have learned a lot more about the Constitution of the United States of America, which should be first and foremost in everyone's mind, anybody's mind. It has to do with our rights. And the amendments, all of that, the history, it is so important. It is so important for everyone to understand what's going on. Okay? We have tried to have meetings. We have been told that we couldn't have a meeting at the Elks Club. We have been told we couldn't have a meeting at the Senior Center. That nothing having to do with the occupation of the refuge or Ammon Bundy or anything else would be in any county buildings. Then we showed up to a meeting at the fairgrounds where the only thing that was ever spoken about was exactly what they said was never going to occur. Since it was a public meeting, we had the opportunity to speak, and our committee chairman, Mr. Tim Smith, spoke up and said that we'd been blackballed within the community. The very next morning, we received an apology from Mr. Grasty saying that we could have a meeting at the senior center. Okay, fine. So we did that. People came, people spoke, people heard what was going on. People had a chance to voice their opinions and to be heard as their rights allow them. We've been trying to do anything and everything that we can do as the Committee of Safety to mitigate this situation, to de-escalate this situation. I want these people to be able to go home to their families. I want the law enforcement to go home to their families. I want to figure out what it is that we can do as citizens of the United States of America to retain our rights.
Yes, sir.
I guess that must be a bad thing.
No, sir.
Because I was just informed just a few minutes ago by Steve Grasty that I'm an old man and I have nothing left and I'm not dangerous and that my perception is all wrong. I stand before you as a 63-year-old man and I don't feel old right now. I got scars all over me and I hurt all the time. Big deal. I am still a man and I still stand strong. After Mr. Grasty told me that, notice I'm not saying Judge Grasty. That to me is a respectful thing. I say Steve Grasty told me my perception was wrong. I asked him for a piece of paper. I have been the county fire chief here since 1984. I have served, I have worked with the Bundys, I've worked, or not with the Bundys, I'm sorry, with the Hammons. I've worked with ranchers all over this community to help with fire prevention, to help with controlled burns, to do what I can to help my fellow man. I took a piece of paper and I wrote down the address, or not the address, I'm sorry. Folks, I'm a human. I need to remind myself that I'm human and I don't always say the right thing. But I took and I wrote down the date and I said, I, Chris Allen Briles, do hereby resign my position as the Harney County Fire Chief. Okay? Does that mean when you quit, who do you quit? That might say that I just quit this county. I did not just quit this county, but I will not work for a government or a person that I do not believe in and have faith in. Or,
yes, sir.
I will not,
yes, sir.
I will not work for somebody that I don't trust.
Hell no.
I will stand before you and tell you the truth. Do not ever ask me a question if you don't want the answer. I've been told by Steve to distance myself from this Committee of Safety. I've been told that we don't know what we're doing. I've been told that my life is in danger. I've been told all kinds of things. I will not be told what to do. I have my own mind, and I will use my own mind, not somebody else's. And I feel that the people in this county, in this state, in this United States, have the right to free speech and the right to assemble and the right to figure out if there's a problem, what can be done about it. I have not quit this community. I have not quit this county. If there's a rancher out there anywhere that needs my services for anything, if they can use any of my skills and expertise to help them for fire prevention or anything, my door is still open. We have to have a place to assemble. We have to have a place to be heard. We do not need violence. I don't want violence. I do not want violence. But I stand before you as someone that has been tried to be intimidated in many, many ways. The other day, a friend of mine poked me in the chest and said, you need to find out what your cohorts are doing at the armory. Because there's people that had been at the armory twice. They'd been turned into the police. And I thought, my gosh. So I followed the people, and I stopped them. Or I followed them until they stopped, and I got out and I asked them who they were. They were dishonest with me. They would not tell me what they were doing. I asked them what they were doing in our armory, what they were doing. Well, we're just two guys going through town looking for a place to have a business. And I said, sir, typically you don't have a business in an armory. Then they said, well, we weren't even at the armory. And I said, I followed you from the armory. Then they said, well, yeah, we were at the armory, but really we were looking at the deer. There's a big shooter 4-point in there. I'm not sure how often you shoot deer in an armory, but I asked them to please be truthful with me because I was trying to be truthful with them, and that there's too much fear in our community. Push comes to shove, let's just kind of get down to the end of it. I pursued information. I took a picture of their vehicle. I was not allowed to see our county sheriff. I went up to ask to speak to him, and I was told no, I couldn't. I was supposed to call 911. I said, okay, I will call the dispatch. And I called the dispatch because 911's for emergencies. It's not for just chit-chat. Okay? I understand that. I don't want to abuse that. They ran the license plate. It came back to undercover FBI agents. Mr. Grasty told me today that I'm the one that's causing the fear, that I have no right to question anybody about what anybody's doing in our armory, and that I have no right to follow anybody and question anybody, that I'm the one that's causing fear. I stand before you and I ask you, what do you think? Do I have the right to talk to another human being?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Do I have a right to ask what's going on in my community?
Yes, you do.
This is absolutely appalling to me. I've had my life has turned completely upside down and inside out since I've been involved in this committee. I have no personal life anymore, ever. I've been told, why don't you distance yourself from it? Why don't you run? I was born in Denver, Colorado. The only place they have ostriches is at the zoo. I never learned to stick my head in the sand, and I stand before you right now. I will not stick my head in the sand.
We're here at the Harney County Resource Center, formerly known as the Militia National Wildlife Refuge. There's been a lot of things that are good things that are happening. Today we took a crew of people and we're beginning to clean up the area. Most of these buildings have been really abused. They're just garbage and debris and rodents all over in them. And so we're cleaning that up and getting it ready for the people to use it. We're also in the middle of records and keeping records. Or excuse me, you can cut that, by the way. You could.
That's fine.
Slice it. We're in the middle of working through the records to identify all the usage on the land and the resources here in Harney County. That's an arduous task, but we got a great team doing it. And what we're planning on doing with those is once all the boundaries have been identified, then we will get those straight with the local people and verify that that is all right. And then we will begin to record those in the county recorder's office as their rights and not as the federal government's rights. We're going to do exactly what the federal government has done, which all they did is come down these counties and claimed it all themselves and then went and recorded it in either their own records or in the county records. And we're going to reverse that and get these lands back to the people. We're basing our arguments on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, which are the rules the federal government must follow in order to administrate or control land inside the states. And as I've said many times, if the federal government wants to own land, or I should say control land or administrate land inside the states, they have to get consent from the state legislature. They have to purchase it from the rightful owner, and they can only use it for the purposes of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. So basically military purposes, for international trade, and then other things such as post offices, and there is some need for some federal courthouses and so forth. That is all that was supposed to happen, and the reason for that is the founders knew that the federal government was going to end up with a lot of money. They didn't understand, well, they didn't know at that time that taxes would be changed and they'd have literally billions of dollars. But they were afraid that the federal government was going to go down inside the states and begin buying all the land. And if they were allowed to do that without limitation, what would happen is with all the taxpayers' money, the federal government would come down into the states, down into an area, and start purchasing and buying up all the land, and leave no land or resources left for the people. And that's exactly what's happened here on this refuge. 187,000 acres is what makes up this refuge, and they came in, and under duress, many of them, but they came in and acquired the ranchers and the users' land, and they did this with the taxpayers' money, and now the people, the heart of their county is literally owned by the U.S. government. It was never supposed to be that way. Our founding fathers set rules on them. They were supposed to get consent from the state legislature first. Then they can purchase it, and they can only use it for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. That's what we're here. That's why we are standing on constitutional principles, and we can see that there's a tremendous amount of, it appears, corruption in the county, because the county judge, Judge Grasty, he is fighting tooth and nail to make sure that whatever's going on here is not exposed. That whatever corruption or collaboration that they've been in for the last who knows how many years does not get exposed. And our goal here is very clear. Number one, get the Hammons out of prison. Number two, get the people back using their lands and resources as their lands. And number three, to expose the corruption that we are beginning to see pretty heavily here in this county, so that the people can move forward without having to deal with that, and without someone just coming back in and putting the chains back on them. So thank you very much. What has happened to the Hammonds will be a type and a shadow of what will happen to the rest of us across this nation if we do not assure that justice has been brought forth, if we do not assure that it does not happen again. The truth matters, and it must be exposed. Justice must be served. The federal government has strict rules that they are required by the people, by the law, to follow. They have thumbed their nose at this supreme law. If they are allowed to continue, they will destroy every industry across this nation, just as they have done with the banking, the housing, the auto, the logging, the manufacturing, the healthcare, and the ranching. Federal agencies have become modern-day conquerors. They understand clearly where wealth and power derives from, and are plundering upon the people's land and resources through codes and regulations. If it is not stopped now, the people will have nothing left to stand on, and they will be too weak to do so. Got it. Oh, no battery.
Take care, Ammon.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Watching you on YouTube for the last 2 days.
watching you all week.
Decided to come up.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming up.
I'm Lynette Warren. My husband is John Kennedy.
Hi, Lynette and Don.
John.
John, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we're from Nevada.
Oh, you're from Nevada?
So we
Came all the way up.
It was so interesting watching you that we decided to
That's great.
come up and have a look.
How does this feel?
It feels good.
Is it a beautiful country up here?
Oh, it is,
Don't
yeah.
feel-
You feel unsafe?
Yeah, I feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an unsafe environment.
There's nothing here to worry about that I can see.
Well,
They're trying to scare people away from coming here.
we were in town for 15 minutes before the Oregon State Police flagged us down. And,
They did?
Pulled us over for a little domestic tourism.
yeah.
They did?
Yeah.
What did they end up saying to you?
Well, whenever we're touring around outside of town, we like to drive around and take a look at what the town's like when we get into our hotel.
Sure.
That's all we were doing last night.
Taking a picture, we took a picture of the Silver Spur Motel.
We're staying there tonight.
Staying there
Oh, you are?
Yeah. And yeah, he flagged us down and wanted to know what we were doing there and.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
What you were doing at the Silver Spur?
No, what we were just doing in town, driving around, and they looked in our car with the flashlights and stuff, sort of
Gave us a really good looking over with the flashlight in the back of the car there. And,
Huh.
yeah.
Do you feel uncomfortable about all that?
Well, of course I feel uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, we don't like getting pulled over by the cops for nothing.
Yeah, what was the probable cause for being pulled over?
We were driving around. I was turning around because I was just looking around to see what stores were there, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it looked like we were getting out into a residential area, so I was turning around.
Uh-huh. So by
Not really
making
doing anything illegal.
making a turn,
Yeah.
okay, that caused them to think that you were suspicious.
They want it,
Yeah.
I think so.
And did you give them your consent to search your vehicle as
Well,
they were?
They searched from outside.
They did.
Just with the
Right.
flashlights, took a good look inside every part of the car.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Very
what I
interesting.
imagine they're doing.
They seemed keyed up.
They did?
Yeah, they seemed.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
They seemed on
Young-
alert. They seemed alert. On
young
alert.
Oregon State Police, yeah.
Yeah. Most of these guys, that actually, if you talk to them, they're pretty nice. They are.
Oh, they were,
know.
well, the one guy I talked to was polite. He was certainly
The
polite.
the main reason why they're keyed up is because the FBI's already gotten caught doing what they do. They'll have their goons out there, their operatives out there posing as militia, and then following deputies and just creating this fearful environment. But it doesn't come from anyone that's associated with this constitutional restoration.
Well, you've been here for several days.
Yes.
Have you noticed that other police from other jurisdictions are here?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, because there's a part of Portland. There's another jurisdiction there called Milwaukee, It's a little bit south of Portland. And I noticed there's a Milwaukee police car in town this morning. I guess they're all on overtime coming out here.
They are. They're helping out for whatever reason that the local government believes that they need all this staffing. It's really, really over. It really is overkill.
It is. Well, to close the schools last week, and it really gets impressed on you how remote this area is from Burns, how far away you have to drive.
Yeah.
And what little
strategically, I would say that it's brilliant because it's far removed from any potential public safety issue. So it's beautiful. But listen, I have my vehicle waiting. I'm really glad you guys had a chance to get on the air. We'll see you over at the hotel.
See you. You've been doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Those are kind words.
See you tonight. We're at the
Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you later. With our audience, what inspired you to come out here?
Well, lots of things, especially you, and just standing up for my God-given rights and the universal law of do no harm but take no shit. Period.
Yeah.
And just get our rights back lawfully and trying with all peaceful solutions first.
Yeah.
And
Of course, exhaust all possible peaceful means, right?
Yes, sir.
That's
That's
right.
the true way of a warrior, of a true warrior.
Yeah.
Is to try every peaceful solution. And the leadership here are very rational and logical, and I will only support logical leadership and lawful, common law, constitutional.
Do you understand the land issues with all of this land that's being quote unquote that the government says that they own? Do you understand?
Yes, I understand that they cannot own more than 10 square miles of land and courts and small stuff like that, but not massive millions of acres across the U.S. That is not technically anything, it's illegal based upon our documents. So
have you learned through this whole experience, just like coming in contact with our show, have you learned a lot about the Constitution?
Well, I just hear. I already knew a lot about the Constitution. I just agree with you, and I mean, it's only one way to make a plane fly. So you can't argue about that. So
right.
The Constitution is what it is. It's documented, and it's there. So we all just agree. We all know that that's the best way, And I agree with you 1,000% on this matter, and I've done my research, and I hope everybody else we need to do more research about this situation.
Where'd you come from? What city and state?
Well, I was actually raised in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Jefferson County. And I hope that we could do that. We could take it to another level and eliminate the corruption in that county and every county in the U.S.
Arkansas, there's a lot of corruption down there?
Oh, yeah.
There is, huh?
Yes.
You guys, are you a vet?
No.
No? Okay, that's fine. That's okay. I was just wondering because you had your garb on.
They're Burns Militia men, so
that's great.
We're looking forward to having you guys.
Welcome. Thanks for having the courage to step out.
Exactly.
That's good. We support. There's a lot of supporters in town. It's just when stuff goes on, nobody wants to do it.
Yeah.
And everybody's afraid. When all this is done, local people are going to get messed.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're here
done and handed over to them. If the federal government so much as farts in their direction, we'll be right back here to support these guys.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a fact. You know that, right?
If ever we need help somewhere, they're going to come out and help support us. So
the other thing I just want to bring up while I got you on this is we watched the video and you guys were at the Burns High School, and that was pretty shameful for our county, Harney County.
I appreciate you speaking out about that.
There's a lot of supporters. That thing, like you said, had a bunch
that wasn't representative.
It
was not representative.
I've lived in Harney County all my life, and I believe strongly in what's going on. If this didn't happen, none of this would be getting worked out.
That's right.
The sheriff says leave. When you guys leave, they're just going to brush this over.
The only safe place for the land and the resources are in the hands of the people. We have a situation in this county where the Bureau of Land Management, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and county officials have teamed up and taken hundreds of thousands of acres away from the people. It has brought wealth and power to these government officials and put the people in duress and put them in poverty.
The kindness and the support that we've received from the people here has just been absolutely mind-blowing.
We're confident that we are going to get this done, and we know that it must happen now. We know that this is the place, Harney County, and that these are the people. And I express my love to them and for their desire to understand these things and for their desire to make them right.
This is about normal to me. That kind of
There is a extreme amount of intimidation and pressure on the community right now. It is coming from those who have basically occupied their town, and it seems like most of it is also coming from Judge Grasty. He is being exposed right now and is, I don't know, he's very irrational in his actions. He has not allowed us to have a meeting in any county building or any public building, even though we want to talk to the community and express what we're doing and what our plans are and what our plans are for leaving, but he will not allow that to happen. Also, the ranchers and the land users and even the employees from the federal government or from the government in general are being highly intimidated. They are being fed and told lies to keep them in fear, and they're being told not to come out here, not to support, not to donate. The other day when we went and got permission from the Pucketts to remove the fence, before we even got to the fence, they had received 3 phone calls, one from their range con, the BLM range con, the other one from the state, and a third from the FBI. And so they pretty heavily intimidated them and made them feel as if they spoke out that they were going to take action against them. And this is what's going on all over. There's ranchers that have permits and they're afraid to speak out. There's government employees that have jobs and they're afraid to speak out. And they're afraid because they're actually being told. Downtown Burns looks like a war zone. They've got all their county buildings and the school all fenced off, and the FBI are down in their school. And this is all propaganda to keep the community afraid of what's going on. But the thing is it is going to backfire, because the people are not ignorant, they're not stupid, and many of them are reaching out and finding out that we are no threat to them, that we are here for them because of the egregious actions that have been taking place in this county. And they're primarily, there's like a dynamic duo. There's the Bureau of Land Management, the Fish and Wildlife Service, including the refuge, and then the county. And they have been oppressing and threatening and scaring the people for many, many years. They've been taking their land and resources. And we know that we're very close to uncovering some very deep things. And so we ask those people, we ask the people of Harney County to stay strong, to not be afraid. The opposite of fear is faith, and the opposite of faith is fear. And you do not unify people through faith. You unify people through love. And as you begin to see what's really going on, you'll see that the only reason we're here is because of our love for you. And so I ask you to hang in there. Thank you.
That's true.
And we've interviewed about 40 different people. And I would say over half of them are saying we can't talk, they won't let us.
Can we hear this, what is just being said?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Say it louder, please.
Okay. We interviewed about 40 or 50 people in Harney County, and none of them will go on the record, but they will all off the record say they are being intimidated to not verbally, publicly support you guys, and that this is the first time that they've ever had a voice against policies of land use. Can you comment on that? Or
well, let's look at the Pucketts when we open the fence. You know, where you say, "Hang strong, be strong," and they say, "We are, but we're not used to this." So there's a concrete example of this, just not broad brushes, but that's a narrow stroke. That's an individual family. So yes, it's true. Federal government, go home, take care of federal things, secure our borders, protect our nations, keep commerce regular, and just a couple other things. Get the heck out of Dodge and leave the rest for the state and the counties to take care of. Let the people be free. It's high time, dadgummit. Get out of town. So anyway, Before I get too hot, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, no, it's a good kind of hot.
Yeah, it is. Amen.
Thank you. All right. Well, you're certainly part of the story because we're investigating this now. Pardon me? Yeah, no, well, you've already made your comment, but I want to thank you very much for bringing that up. Okay, is that fair? Good, thank you. You understand what's going on here.
The story needs to be on them, not journalists.
I agree, but the journalists need to do the job that you're doing, and that is to discover the truth and report it. Thank you. Yeah. He's with RT. He talked to. He said he interviewed 40 people. They're all cowering in fear. They're being intimidated. They're being told to keep their mouth shut. I'm going to say this, okay? Hey, FBI trailer, okay? You're in the thread. Does anyone want to join me? I will take my bullhorn and we'll go protest and go out in front of that freaking FBI compound. Is anybody here? I'm sick and tired of this freaking crap. I want people in Harney County, okay, from everywhere to join me. I'll go there if I have to stand by myself. And I want to tell them to get the frig out of here. I'm sick and tired of it. We will not cower to your tyranny, you jackbooted thugs. We will surround you with unarmed people, and we will crush you with constitutionality. Who wants to join me out at the FBI compound at the airport? Who wants to join me?
We'll go. A man who worked for the BLM, or Bureau of Land Management, in Harney County for 3 decades, tells me claims they did not work with the ranchers is hurtful and untrue. In fact, according to him, Harney County could almost be the poster county for ranchers, government, and environmental groups trying to work hand in hand. We won't identify him by name. He has a business in Harney County and wants to avoid retaliation. For this ex-BLM employee, Harney County has been a picture of cooperation, time and time again.
Sat down with all the groups and worked together. It's painful, and it takes a long time, but at least, we've always talked. We've always been able to talk and work through things, as much as not everybody always gets what they want, but they always work through it.
That's what compromise is all about.
That's what America's built on, is that, this whole melting pot of people that tried to get along through the process.
But again, it's not people from within the county, the people with whom he's worked. It's outsiders trying to skip steps. You told me that they chose the wrong county, that maybe this is happening elsewhere, but it wasn't happening here.
It was not happening here. There was not this huge takings thing that they keep. We've taken the ranchers' rights, we've taken land, we've taken all of these things. We've not. The agencies haven't taken any land. Matter of fact, land trades on the Steens, some of those landowners ended up 8-1 to the.
Our stand here is very clear. It is our duty as a people. It is a moral and a righteous stand. And it is a stand for the future of this country.
It's Friday, January 15th. I'm Simone Del Rosario, and you are watching an RT America special report. It's been 2 weeks since an armed militia took over a federal wildlife refuge in eastern Oregon. 2 weeks. And tensions are growing.
This county and this community does not support you.
We're not terrorists. The authorities should go in and just pull those people out of there.
Get the federal government out of all aspects of individuals' lives so that they can live free.
Certainly a lot of frustration right now. You hear it from my customers every night that, why isn't something being done?
Over the next half hour, you will hear from these voices, hear from all sides of the story, including my sit-down interview with militia ringleader Ammon Bundy. 2 weeks into the occupation of the Militia National Wildlife Refuge, the town of Burns, Oregon, in Harney County is wondering when the uninvited visitors will ever leave. It's important to remember why they came in the first place. The Hammonds are locals who own a ranch. 73-year-old Dwight Hammond and his 46-year-old son, Stephen, were convicted for arson by a federal court after setting 2 fires that caused some damage to federal land. The father-son duo have previous run-ins with the law over several other incidents involving fires that date back as far as 1982. The controversy, however, is over 2 controlled burns the Hammonds started in 2001 and 2006. Where the family argued the fires were set to keep away invasive plant species to avert the spread of a wildfire that threatened their winter feed, despite the fact that a burn ban was in effect. The federal government even agreed that the Hammonds started the fire on their 10,000-acre property as a safety measure, but argued that the burn ban had to be enforced because of the high risk of fire. Both men were convicted and sentenced to serve about a year in prison each. Here's where things get a little bit more complicated. A federal law called the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996 requires a 5-year minimum sentence for arson. Lucky for the Hammonds, the initial judge in the case rejected the mandatory minimum, allowing both men to serve out their sentences and eventually walk free. But the story doesn't end there. The case later made its way to an appeals court, which ruled that the men had to return to jail and finish serving the mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years because of a previous precedent set by the Supreme Court. Getting tired of fighting, the Hammonds eventually turned themselves in, and the whole ordeal sparked outrage in their community. When news traveled that the Hammonds would be forced to go back to prison, Ammon Bundy and his brother Ryan gathered supporters and came to town. The Bundys have experience in confronting the government in the form of armed militia. In 2014, their father, Cliven, became a hero for the right wing, staging a similar armed standoff with the Bureau of Land Management. This after BLM attempted to seize the ranchers' cows to make up for $1.2 million in grazing fees Cliven Bundy refused to pay over the course of 2 decades he used federal land. A citizen militia gathered at his ranch to defend Bundy. The federal government ended up standing down, and Bundy ended up keeping his cows. He never paid that debt and still has not paid grazing fees. Outside Burns, Oregon, the Bundy sons are trying to take a similar stand against the federal government. With copies of the Constitution in their pockets, they argue the land belongs to the people, hence their hostile takeover.
About the laws that you're breaking.
Well, what is the supreme law of the land?
But you're breaking laws that are actually in place right now.
We're breaking codes and regulations, possibly. We're not breaking the supreme law of the land. In fact, we're enforcing it.
The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. In Oregon, Ammon Bundy gave me an exclusive tour of the compound they confiscated. Despite previous reports, the group is very well fed. I estimate a couple dozen people are actually living at the refuge, while Bundy says hundreds have come in and out over the past 2 weeks. He admits to going through federal files at the refuge to try to exonerate the Hammonds and other ranchers who he says have had land taken from them over the years. And then we sit down at the Wildlife Museum for an exclusive one-on-one. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, the Declaration of Independence states that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. That's what Ammon Bundy says he's doing.
We came down here to take a county and get it back to its constitutional premise, to work with the people so that they can begin to claim their rights themselves and so that they can begin to use them.
He claims the federal government has overstepped its bounds for decades. First, they designated public land to establish a wildlife refuge to preserve and protect native birds. And in the early 20th century, new federal regulations required ranchers to pay a fee to use the forest they used to use for free.
The Constitution has been violated to the point where the ranchers don't have rights according to the federal government, that they're just renters or they're just leasers and they don't have any rights. And so that's why we go back to the Constitution, and we basically have to lay it out that the people did not give the federal government authority to come down into the states and to control the land and the resources, that those land and resources belong to people, that they're real property. And for example, like the grass, the grazing rights, the rancher owns the grass. It's a right just like the water rights. They established a right through beneficial use because they were here and they've been doing it for over 100 years. And those are rights. They truly are rights. They're established by common law, established by natural law, and the federal government can't just come in here and say they own it.
Natural law is the philosophy that certain rights are inherent by virtue of human nature. Philosopher John Locke believed that when man takes land that nature has provided and mixes it with his labor, like ranchers grazing cattle, in that way it makes it his property. But time and time again, the federal government and Supreme Court have ruled that the federal government does ultimately control public land, not man and not the state. Bundy aims to change that.
We wouldn't sacrifice our lives, we wouldn't sacrifice being away from our children, being away from our families, being away from our businesses, if we did not feel that we were going to make a difference here.
Here is the Militia National Wildlife Refuge.
We needed a place to do it. We needed facilities to be able to house people, to be able to feed people. We needed offices to be able to communicate, and that's what we're here for.
And contrary to popular belief, the self-proclaimed Citizens for Constitutional Freedom have a somewhat sophisticated operation.
We're highly organized. We've got teams working out with communities. We've got committees working with other committees. We've got operations in security, and we have vast communications, and we actually have some deep pockets that are willing to help fund.
But how much support they have from locals is difficult to determine. Most, if not all, of the militants have come from outside the county. And while Bundy and company say they are taking a stand for local ranchers, it's unclear whether ranchers want their help. A week and a half into the occupation, the Bundys led a charge to the Puckett Ranch down the road. Bundy says a Puckett told them the federal government cut off access to grazing land with this fence. So per Puckett's request, the Bundys cut it down. But Tim Puckett is telling media he never contacted the Bundys. And while a representative from his ranch did show them the fence, he never asked to cut it down. Puckett adds that his family has always worked well with the federal government. The same cannot be said for the Hammonds. And while Hammond's lawyer has distanced the family from Bundy's movement, for Ammon, it's at the forefront of his mind.
The Hammonds, even if they did commit the crimes that they said they did, they don't deserve 5 years. 5 years of their life taken out and put in a federal prison. 5 years of their life away from their family. You know, Dwight is 73 years old. He'll be 74 years old. He'll be 79 when he gets out. That's if he can make it. I mean, it's significant what we're talking about. So we had to do something.
And Bundy is willing to stay as long as it takes. The militiamen occupying the refuge are demanding the land be returned to its rightful owners, the ranchers. But with evidence of Native American artifacts and cultural sites on the land dating back thousands of years, it begs the question, if not the federal government, to whom does the land really belong? Many would argue the Burns Paiute tribe is next in line. I sat down with Burns Paiute tribal chairwoman Charlotte Rodriguez to get her reaction to the militants' claims. Before public domain, before the white man ever arrived in what is now eastern Oregon, the Burns Paiute tribe and its ancestors hunted, gathered, and utilized the land now being claimed by a few dozen armed militants. Militants who insist the Militia National Wildlife Refuge should be returned to its origins. Burns Paiute tribal chairwoman Charlotte Rodriguez tells me exactly what she thinks of that demand.
When you say, oh, we're going to give it back to the ranchers who are the rightful owners of this, you know, did the ranchers just drop out of the sky into virgin territory that never had been touched by anybody? Nobody had walked across it, anything, and it just became theirs? No, it didn't happen.
She says this claim to the land is very offensive and recounts the first time white men occupied.
And then they killed us and drug us out of here, and then they said there's nobody here, so we're going to open it to public domain.
What was left of the Burns Paiute tribe forced onto a mere 700-acre reservation in the mid-1800s. The tribe signed a treaty with the federal government in 1868.
To me, I'm watching to see what the federal law enforcement does with this situation, because they have a treaty obligation to all Native Americans that when anything that has to do with Native people is infringed upon by a white man, and it says white man right in most of the treaties, that the federal government is obligated to protect the rights of the Native people.
Law enforcement's next move is under intense scrutiny, and its lack of action thus far is highly criticized. Militants have occupied the federal refuge for 2 weeks now. Meanwhile, the FBI is still staked out at Burns Airport, more than 30 miles away from the refuge.
If we had gone down there and done something like that. We're brown-skinned, people of color. I said, you would have thumped me on the forehead first, drugged me off the land, thumped me again, and locked me up, or shot me, or whatever. And I said, but because these people are not people of color, the whole approach to enforcing government laws is different. And I said, it's biased. I think they should be more aggressive. And I think, truthfully, I do think if it were people of color, the approach would be more aggressive.
Rodriguez says authorities should pull the people out by whatever means necessary. Until then, the tribe is on the lookout, watching over the reservation, looking for anything suspicious. But eyes are on the tribe as well.
Native people across the nation are watching us. Native people across the nation are ready. If anybody threatens, or assaults, or something happens with the tribal people, there's going to be no holding people back.
It has not come to that, not yet, and no one wants to repeat history. But this fight is not about cowboys versus the native people. In fact, in at least one way, these groups see eye to eye. Rodriguez says while she thinks the federal government is doing the best it can taking care of the land, she'd like to see more done.
Would your tribe be better at taking care of the local land?
I think we have a good grasp on it because we do manage 2 sites. And it's been mentioned to us by other agents, some federal agencies, that we do a good job.
And like the militia at the refuge, she too wants the land.
Any section of that area that could be reestablished under tribal control and whatever, we would gladly take it.
But concludes that never would she take it using similar tactics.
Since the first days of Oregon's standoff, actions, or rather inactions, of law enforcement have been hotly debated. Should the authorities have been more aggressive in dealing with the militia rather than setting up an FBI compound 30 miles away? But it's not unthinkable that law enforcement would respond aggressively to armed militants seizing property. In the early 1990s, 2 high-profile standoffs happened at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, and Waco, Texas. And that's exactly what law enforcement did, with disastrous results. At Ruby Ridge, right-wing activist Randy Weaver took his family to live in a remote cabin instead of showing up at court to face weapons charges. U.S. Marshals got into a firefight with Weaver, a friend, and Weaver's 14-year-old son, resulting in the death of a marshal and the son. The gunfight prompted an 11-day standoff during which an FBI sniper attempting to hit 2 armed men instead shot and killed Weaver's unarmed wife as she held the couple's 10-month-old baby. Weaver then surrendered. The Waco siege in early 1993 involved a cult called the Branch Davidians, led by David Koresh. This standoff was much more complicated. Agents attempted to raid the Davidians' compound for illegal explosives, which ended up in a gunfight. Unlike the Ruby Ridge standoff, however, it did not end with surrender. When the FBI tried to end the 51-day siege by tear gassing the compound, the building set fire. In the end, more than 80 people died, including 22 children. It's easy to assume law enforcement is trying not to repeat history, but the longer this standoff continues, the more frustrated the community becomes. In multiple meetings the county has had since the militia invaded, members of the community expressed their concerns. The majority think the Bundys need to go, but there's still a lot of support for the issues they've helped surface. Harney County is a mix of ranchers, federal employees, and those who live and work in town. The logging industry that once helped this community thrive is gone. Environmental groups helped shut it down. Ranching is now the major catalyst for the economy, and many fear the government is overstepping its bounds. But the community is ready to take the conversation back, handle it in-house, send the militants home. I spoke with the mayor of Burns, Craig Lafayette, about how he plans to handle it.
We are a very close-knit, resilient community, and there has been some division created. I believe that once the militia is gone and we're able to get our lives back to normal, those divisions will be healed. And there may be some very healthy, positive discussions about some of our disagreements, but at the end of the day, we'll come together as a community.
Burns Mayor Craig LaVoy considers himself the eternal optimist. He understands the challenges his community faces, challenges brought to light in Harney County from occupiers outside the community. I ask him if that's fair.
Absolutely not. No, not fair at all. These folks, the Bundys, are not from this community. Most of the folks that are from the reports I've gotten, most of the folks that are out of the refuge are not even from Oregon. So no, it's not fair. It's not fair that this wonderful, peaceful community has been put in the limelight for this reason.
But it does not mean they do not have community support. People from within the community have helped stock the shelves of the refuge, where dozens of militants are staying for an unknown period of time.
That sends the militiamen a message
Right.
that they're wanted.
Right, absolutely does. And that, I think that certainly is what their intent is, that they would like people to continue to bring them and support them things and provide them support to have that belief that they are supported. But I think the overwhelming message from the community and from the folks that are living here in our community is that we don't want them here. They're disrupting our lives, and we're ready for them to go home and get our lives back to normal.
For now, many are on edge. Though the Bundys consider this a peaceful takeover, Sheriff Dave Ward reports an uptick in threats, intimidation, and vandalism. His own wife's tires have been slashed. In fear, she left town for a week. The sheriff's station, the courthouse are barricaded and watched, but the militiamen move around freely. LaFollette supports law enforcement's careful conduct and hopes the town's message alone will push the men out.
This county and this community does not support you, and that you have an agenda that needs to leave, and you need to find a different platform in which to try to communicate your message.
All right, y'all got your cameras? You want to see this? Does that look like you? Surveillance cameras? With no network. This is United States federal government surveillance.
Wow.
Welcome to America. I've been telling you.
Start dismantling it.
Those are $1,500 a piece, too.
Who's spying on us? Your federal government.
Why are they doing that?
Because they serve the rich and elite class of this earth. Wake up, people.
Actually, you techie gurus out there know how to find out where that...
Furthermore, there is a manufacturer's address code on this unit. Every IP-related device that is manufactured and brought into the United States has a unique and individual manufacturer's address code. This is so this device can be traced at any time, anywhere in the world. I will guarantee you, when you take this MAC address, you're going to find it's Department of Homeland Security or the FBI or some entity as such in your community mounting surveillance cameras without your knowledge. How you feel about that, folks?
Can you read that number off?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of geeks out there listening, so you boys get to work.
This is a MAC address.
Manufacturer's address code. Foxtrot 48139 Echo Echo 3 Foxtrot 90. Look it up, boys. See where it come from. All right, let's bound up. Let's get
Okay, I'm cold. Get your job done. Let's do it. Hey. All right. Any other questions? Yep, Phil. Here, take a picture of it.
Well, boy, do you believe that if the electric company owns those, does the NSA have access to them?
You can come over here.
No, you're not. You're going to do it right there. Boy, I need to do the community safety meeting. Community safety meeting.
We are still working so hard. Judge Grassi has cut us at every
corner, is very important. That we, the citizens of Harney County, are upset. They come to us and says, why does not our elected officials give us access to our building? We hope it'll be open, that we can meet in Harney County Monday. If not, we'll go ahead and try to make another venue. So I wish I had more information about that.
What do you plan to say?
Ammon has laid out a PowerPoint presentation to explain exactly why we're here, have more consistent guys.
And what is it?
Hopefully have that meeting. Open the grass, knock on his door, say, Judge Jackson, why are you allowed to that's a good thing. All right.
What do you say to the protesters here at the Center for Diversity? Are you guys farming the land? Are you cutting roads through here? No roads cut through?
No, this is public land for Harney County. Plus the grazing. This is your land. This is Oregon. This is Harney County. I can't wait to get out of Harney, okay? But I will stay here. This property does not go back to the BLM. Let's again reiterate, or to the federal government. It does not return to the federal government. Let the states deal with issues of the state. Let the counties deal with issues of the counties. And let us have a representative one that has all the power consolidated in one head 1,000 miles away or care less about us here in the local government. All right, have a good day. We shall see you again Monday.
Okay. Here's the deal. I'm trying to conduct a peaceful protest in the county. I need a Harney County sheriff to come here and address. Right now, I have a safety concern. I have an FBI, a federal agent, who, when I said be constitutional, he said don't threaten me. Now we have somebody who has immediately opened up in an adversarial position, and he's got a gun on his chest. None of us are armed. I have a safety concern, and I want a constitutional sheriff to come here. If you want to abandon me, I want you to contact Sheriff Gillespie. Ask him how that worked out. Yes, go ahead. Okay, pass on the message. Okay. Please pass this message. If I don't have a constitutional sheriff here, and I'm citing a safety concern right now. If I'm injured, harmed, then a new sign's going to go up after I'm injured. I'm going to change this place to Peteville. Okay? Yeah. And anyone that is harmed right now, I need a sheriff here. And you're not rolling a sheriff. I have a guy that says that he feels threatened by my saying be constitutional. So are you saying that you're not going to?
But the people that I pass the message on to are in contact with the people out there, so they're well aware of what's going on.
Okay, can I get a Harney County sheriff here? Yes or no?
I pass the information on to them.
Okay, I have you on a live stream right now, and I'm documenting this for all of our safety. Are you going to send a Harney County sheriff here to this dirt where I'm standing? Yes or no?
I pass the information on to the people.
You need to put me in touch with your supervisor right now, because there's a liability issue. We're about to own your town if something happens. All of us. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm citing for all of our safety, we need a constitutional sheriff here to intervene, because this thunderhead up here, when I said be constitutional, he said don't threaten me. He feels threatened. I don't feel comfortable approaching him without a sheriff to step in and intervene for our safety and protection. We are protected constitutionally. I want no guns anywhere near this place. We didn't, and I specifically said that, didn't I? Right? I said come here peacefully. Huh?
We have sheriffs right here.
We do, but we need a Harney County sheriff. We do, and I have to disrespect this gentleman. Yes.
These are lawless police right here.
You keep saying that. You keep saying that. Here, dispatch. Do you have an operator number or a number that I can reference for the purposes of documenting this call?